Well, greetings, one and all, and welcome once again to Tom's Hit Parade. Yes, I am not really wasting any time. I'm going to get just pretty much right away, get into the topic because I got a lot of ground to cover here tonight. First of all, though, I forgot to mention Happy Halloween last weekend. I hope you guys had a happy Halloween. We don't really do much of anything for Halloween in our place. We're not in an area that gets any trick or treaters at all. So, and candy is just kind of like it's just as well that we kind of stay away from candy. So hey, it's still a nice holiday. I love the fall colors of the leaves and the foliage around, so it's just the fall color scheme is always something to look forward to. The pumpkins on the front porches and all that stuff's kind of fun. So anyway, hope you guys had a happy Halloween. Hope you guys had a good week and are gearing up for a good weekend. I feel good tonight because I am very anxious to get this topic out to you and get this list done. If you were here last weekend, you saw the first half of my salute to the 2000s, I guess you'd say. I did 3 lists of my favorite holiday albums, my favorite compilations, and my favorite soundtrack releases of the decade of the 2000s. But tonight I am taking on the big list, my top 50 favorite studio albums of the 2000s. Wow. Huh? Anyway, so yes, I'm going to just jump right on the list here. But first, the fine print, I guess you'd say. Lists are an art and not a science. The further away I get from number one, the less precise these rankings are intended to be taken. I could feel differently about half the albums on this list a week from now than I feel today. It took me a while to get these albums ranked in just the right way, or, well, close enough is about where I get. I can never make it precise. And yes, I had originally thought when I conceived my 2000s salute almost a year ago now, my original idea was to give you a list of 100 albums, but that was just going to drive me insane to try and do that. So I've decided to limit it to 50, along with 10 honorable mentions. So I'm just going to fire off the honorable mentions in alphabetical order by artist. So that's the only order that these are in. First of all, we've got A1, a British boy band, with their album The A-List, their sophomore album. Gotta love boy band. When you're talking the 2000s, especially the early part of the 2000s, I can't talk about that part of music without talking about boy bands. So anyway, Lost Highway by Bon Jovi, and then X and Y by Coldplay. I apologize for the glare of my computer screen. Avant-Garde Dog by the band 11, an amazing rock band if you have not heard of them. And we have a Norwegian singer-songwriter, Eric Faber, with his album Century, along with the sophomore album No Boundaries by Piano Quintet The Five Browns, a group of siblings who play piano and are amazingly talented. I saw them in person, live. Then we have One by One by the Foo Fighters. This is only ranked in an honorable mention because I have not been a Foo Fighters follower for very long. That's the only reason. If I'd gotten into them earlier, that album would definitely be on my top 50 list. Then we have one that you guys have never heard of, probably. Gil, with his album called The Album. I'll probably do a video about him at some point. And the last 2 honorable mentions, Heartbeat Radio by Sondre Lerche, and Keep It Simple by Keb Mo, one of my favorite blues guys of all time. So those are the honorable mentions. And then I'm going to take the caddy of 50 discs. Hopefully it's not too heavy for this little platform here that I'm putting it on. And okay, hopefully I won't be stumbling over too much of this list, and hopefully it won't take up the entire hour. It's very, very possible that this video is going to go longer than an hour. But yes, some of these albums, I may not have much to say about them. I might not be able to come up with anything to say about them because, let's face it, sometimes you don't know why you love an album. You just love it, right? So I'm going to do my best here. I probably would have done better in a pre-recorded video, but hey, this is what you're getting. Anyway, beginning the list at my number 50 favorite album of the 2000s is Push the Button by the Chemical Brothers. Now, this was the favorite artist of a now deceased friend of mine from our childhood, He passed away in 2014, and I mean, I'd known about the Chemical Brothers before, but his love for them kind of brought them to my attention, and I really, really enjoy this album, especially the single Galvanize. Excellent song. And then number 49 on my list is Wolfgang's Big Night Out by the Brian Setzer Orchestra. This is classical pieces rearranged in the Brian Setzer Orchestra's swing style. Great, great, and really inventive. And the names that they give some of these pieces, they're basically reworkings of their original names. Hilarious. I mean, the guy's sense of humor is off the charts with the track listing on this. Excellent and really, really entertaining album. Number 48 is Now or Never, the debut solo album by Backstreet Boy Nick Carter. He had very much of a Bryan Adams thing going on with this album. That's probably one reason why I loved it so much. I'm an 80s kid, so I like Bryan Adams. He went more pop and electronica with his subsequent albums, so I didn't like them quite as much, but yes, he was firmly in the rock Bryan Adams vein with this album. Very, very good stuff. I really enjoy that one. Number 47, it's going to be a little low on my ranking, honestly, but, well, this is one of those bands that I just don't love as much as a lot of other people. All That You Can't Leave Behind by U2. My favorite album of theirs from the 2000s, spoiler alert, this is the only U2 album on my list. But yeah, how can you go wrong? Beautiful Day, Stuck in a Moment You Can't Get Out of, and Elevation that's the first three tracks, and that's just a fantastic start to this album. One of the great albums from the first part of that decade. Number 46, and this is another rather low-ranking one. Some of you guys might have trouble with the rankings on these, but hey, as I said, and as I meant to mention in the fine print, this list is not meant to reflect critical criteria or artistic merit or anything. It's just the albums from the decade that I loved and appreciated the most, and the ones that spoke to me the most. That's how I rank these albums, nothing more. But anyway, number 46, American Idiot by Green Day. What can you say about this album that has not been said? This is actually from a studio albums box set that I have. I really, really enjoyed that album. It's like their first 10 albums or something like that. But yeah, excellent album. The rock opera that defined the 2000s, pretty much. And expressed a lot of upset about the socio-political atmosphere that a lot of us were feeling. So very, very well done. Number 45 on my list is one that I've mentioned him before, and this album in particular once or twice, but I need to go into a little bit more depth on it. We have Matt Wertz with his album Everything in Between. This is just excellent singer-songwriter pop rock. I just love this stuff. This guy has not gotten nearly the attention that he deserves. I've got two of his other albums, I believe, but neither of them come as close to perfection almost as this one. Yes, it's still in the 40s, but hey, I gotta love it. Number 44 on my list is Life in Cartoon Motion, the debut album by UK singer-songwriter Mika. The cover art is kind of what drew me to this at first. It's just every bit as colorful as Mika himself is, and I have stuck with him through all of his studio albums. So far, he's put out 5, possibly 6. But yeah, wonderful stuff, and that debut album showed a lot of promise that, in my opinion, he has fulfilled. Now, number 43 is a Canadian duo that I don't know how I happened upon these guys, but I am so glad I did. Their name is Beast, and this is their self-titled album. There's another artist out there called Beast, and very different. This is, I believe, the only major label album that this duo of Beast put out. It's a male and a female, and the woman who is the vocalist, you heard her voice on the soundtrack from the animated movie The Triplets of Belleville, in case anybody has watched that. So it's just a connection that I thought was very curious, very interesting. But yes, fantastic stuff. And the song Mr. Hurricane, listen to that song. That encapsulates the wide variety of influences and genres that they stuff into their music. Everything from hip-hop to gospel to blues to soul to everything. It's just a fantastic, cannot-miss album. And Devil is another great song on this album. But yeah, check out Mr. Hurricane, one of my favorite songs from the 2000s. Excellent stuff. Number 42 is a UK or possibly Irish, and I think they're Irish, group called Relish with their debut album Wildflowers. Very much reminiscent of Lenny Kravitz. I had the name in my head and it tried to escape. But yeah, if you think Lenny Kravitz, that kind of stuff, it's excellent, excellent stuff. I really, really enjoyed this. The song "Rainbow Zephyr" is one of the best, again, one of the best songs of the of the 2000s, in my opinion. They also sing have a song on here called "Heart-Shaped Box," but it is not the Nirvana song. It's a completely different one. But yeah, excellent, fantastic album of soul-tinged rock. Great stuff. Number 41, another artist that is kind of like the Foo Fighters. I'm a little late getting into these guys, and so this album has only had so much time to work its way up the list, and unfortunately it's still only at number 41, The Green Album by Weezer. Gotta love it. And yeah, the songs, Island in the Sun and Hash Pipe are the two big singles off this album. Probably one of their more commercial albums and not one of their more artistically inventive albums, but still, that makes it one of their most popular. It's one of the quirky natures. One of the quirky things about pop music is the more artistically elevated stuff is not necessarily the most popular. Go figure. We're a fickle species, aren't we? Anyway, number 40 on my list of my favorite albums of the 2000s is Continuum by John Mayer. And this one is here partly because my sister was a huge fan of John Mayer, and I went to see him along with Sheryl Crow in concert. Hey, Noah. And and this was the album his album of the moment when that tour was happening. So yes, a lot of great songs on here. Slow Dancing in a Burning Room, that's a great one. Gravity is probably my favorite John Mayer song out of his entire catalog. And Waiting on the World to Change, love that song. And In Repair is another great one. So yeah, this album was packed probably more than any of his others with great songs. Number 39. This one's going to be interesting for you. Has Been by William Shatner. Now, I've talked about William Shatner a little bit because he just actually put out his latest album, Bill, and it's very autobiographical and a lot like this one. Of course, when you think William Shatner, you think comedy. He's kind of making a joke of himself, but a lot of the lyrics on this album were very personal and very heartfelt. One of them was about the time when his wife passed away, his wife at the time. So. Great stuff, and good guest artists on here. Henry Rollins, Brad Paisley, and who would produce this album other than Ben Folds. Ben Folds was the main producer on this album. So if those names don't pull you in and suggest that this album might be pretty darn good quality, it is. Spoiler alert. Number 38 on my list. It's kind of, it's time to take a drink of water here. You guys are probably going to laugh at this list, scoff at it, if you will, at how many solid names rank so low outside of the top 25. That's just the way this list ended up. Number 38 is Hot Fuss by The Killers. This album, I actually picked up this album back, not when it came out, but a little while after it came out. Enjoyed it, but it kind of grew... It shrank on me, and so I got rid of it. Years later, I came back to it, and I don't know what it was that I hadn't heard at the time before, but it just all came to me. What a great group they are, and I've stuck with them to this day. So yeah, great stuff. Their latest album, but this was a great way to start their recording career. So yeah, Mr. Brightside, Smile Like You Mean It. Hey, glasses. Well, it's white lettering across a pale blue background, so that doesn't help, But anyway, yeah, suffice it to say, great hits on this album. Some of their most popular hits. So yeah, excellent stuff. I warned you at the beginning. My eloquence is probably not going to be going to leave something to be desired. But number 37 on this list is one that you guys have probably not heard of, although the artist is somebody that you are at least aware of, maybe not by name. He calls himself E-Man on this album, and this is his album, Favorite Enemy. Now, this guy is Emmanuel Kiriakou. I think I'm pronouncing that properly. He is a very famous and very well-established songwriter and producer now. But this was an album where he was actually an artist on it. And this is just fantastic stuff. I can't remember how I came into this. Oh yeah, he was associated with Joey McIntyre. They did a live album together, and so that's kind of how I came about to become aware of this guy and pick up his solo album. And I just wish he had made more solo albums, as an artist. But he has made very much a very successful career out of being a songwriter and producer. So yay for him. But this one and only album that he put out is fantastic. The song Falling is probably my favorite song on here. Another great song on here is called Wonderfully Strange. So if this is available on streaming, I don't know if it is or not, you got to check it out. And I told you at the beginning of this list that my thoughts of how I rank these albums could change even tomorrow. I'm kind of kicking myself for not ranking this one 10 spots higher. It's that good. Number 36 is another artist that you've probably heard of, Nellie McKay. It looks like McKay, but it's actually pronounced Mackay. With her first album, Get Away From Me, the title and the cover art is a play on Nora Jones' Come Away With Me. And she has a great sense of humor, a very, very snarky sense of humor on this album, as well as a great voice and fantastically varied genre influences on here. She does some hip hop in some spots. She sounds like Doris Day in other songs. So just if you like stuff that's hard to pin down into one genre, this is an album for you. And as I said, great sense of humor, very snarky lyrics, wonderful stuff. Let's see, some good songs on here. I Want to Get Married. That is a very tongue-in-cheek, satirical take on the domestic role of women in society. You're going to laugh at that one. And Won't You Please Be Nice is another very, very funny song. So. Number 35, we have The Guest by Phantom Planet. This is their sophomore album. And a lot of fantastic songs on here. I love their first two albums. After that, they kind of, they kind of strayed into more emo-ish territory. That's probably not the right word. I probably can't think of, a more accurate description of what they went off into. A bit more of a punk, emo punk kind of stuff is what they went into. But this album and their previous one, Phantom Planet is Missing, was their debut album. Very melodic, maybe not quite power pop, but just great, great stuff on here. California was one of their popular singles. That was the theme song from the TV series The OC, as well as we always have we also have Lonely Day. That's a great, great song. And One Ray of Sunlight is another wonderful song. Hey Now Girl. This is just packed with wonderful, excellent songs. So yeah, check out Phantom Planet, especially their first two albums. Great, great stuff there. Coming in at number 34 on my list is a name that I have mentioned several times, and that if he ever puts out another album, I'll mention him again. Paolo Nutini, and this is his debut album, These Streets. Great stuff on here. That's a phrase you're going to hear from me a lot tonight in this video, because as I said, my vocabulary is diminished because it's nighttime and I worked all day, so But Last Request is a great song. New Shoes is a funny, jaunty little song. Oh gosh, what are some of the other ones on here? Too many good songs. Oh, Rewind is another great one. Yeah, if you love singer-songwriter stuff, and he's got a great voice, very interesting voice on him. Kind of low-pitched and a little bit, a little idiosyncratic. I've mentioned before that I like idiosyncratic voices, and his is one of them. So great stuff. And now number 33. This is one of my all-time favorite bands from the 80s. That probably gives it away as to who this is. Duran Duran with their album Red Carpet Massacre. What can I say about this album? It's just Duran Duran has never really put out bad albums. Some of their 90s albums, late 90s, were kind of a little bit better than mediocre, but yeah, they bounced right back in quality, starting into the 2000s. And yeah, the title track is great. Falling Down is probably my favorite song on here. Box Full of Honey. Dirty Great Monster is another highlight on this album. It's got some social commentary in there that's very, very fitting. And yeah, excellent set of songs. I'm sorry if my description of these albums is not as good as it should be. You know, what can I say? I'm just so anxious to get this list out to you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, especially if you check out some of the stuff on this list that you had not heard of before. And also, what would you have on your top 10 favorite albums of the 2000s? Let me know. But watch the rest of this video first. Number 32, as I say, oh, I'm only 20 minutes in. Am I going to get this list done that quickly? No way, I can't. If I do, then yay. It won't be a super long video. Anyway, number 32. It will be extra long if I keep segueing like this. Number 32 on my list is 12 Stops and Home, the debut album by The Feeling. These guys are a UK pop rock group, very much like Supertramp, kind of that same sort of sound. Supertramp, maybe a little bit of Electric Light Orchestra, great power pop-ish kind of stuff. Loads of great songs on this one. I Want You Now, Never Be Lonely, Fill My Little World is a great song. Strange. The song Strange on here is a great anthem for anyone who feels like they don't fit in. It's an anthem for people who don't fit in. Okay, I think I might have lost the signal here for a second. Anyway, the song Strange. Sorry if I'm repeating myself. I lost the signal. The song Strange is a great anthem for people who have trouble fitting in. And it's just a great song. It helps ease that, what can I say? I'm sorry. And then, yeah, just a bunch of good songs on here. Yeah, if you like Supertramp, you're going to like The Feeling. They put out 5 albums, I think, and I have their first 3. Good stuff. Number 31. You guys might laugh at this, but hey, I have a soft spot for these guys. What can I say? The A-Teens with their sophomore album, Teen Spirit. This is a revised version of it. I love this album. This is the kind of album that I'm really surprised that I loved as much as I do. But yes, front to back, it's got great ear candy on this. It's total pop, sonic fluff from top to bottom, but it's just irresistible. Halfway Around the World is a great catchy song. What is one of the other ones? Oh, Upside Down. That's a fun song. And that's what it's all about. Oh gosh, Slammin' Kinda Love. That's the early 2000s for you. It's kind of kitschy, maybe catchy. No, kind of catchy, maybe kitschy. That's what I'm trying to say. What can I say? It's just one of those not so guilty pleasures in my listening. Now, number 30 is another one of the artists that you probably have not heard of. Water break, excuse me. And I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Christian Leontiou. And this is his album Someday Soon. Now, I still remember the first day I saw this. This is one of the last albums, I think, that I picked up from the imports clearance bin at a Tower Records. I saw it there, was just intrigued. I had never heard of this guy before. He was apparently fairly big in the UK, but he never made it across the pond to the States. But yeah, the hype sticker says, "The incredible voice behind the hit single Story of My Life." So that, for some reason, that intrigued me. But yes, that song is great. Shining is a fantastic song. It's Okay. Some Say, Caught in the Moment. I mean, this from front to back, the track listing is just excellent. And yeah, he's kind of like Daniel Powter, I guess, roughly comparable to him. So it's kind of slightly moody singer-songwriter pop kind of stuff. So yeah, check him out if you haven't yet. So something tells me since he was on a major label, I'll bet that he's on streaming services somewhere. Now, number 29 in my list of my favorite albums of the 2000s, we have Perfect Symmetry by Keane. This was their 3rd album, I believe. This was the album where they took a bit of a sonic detour. They went very much into synth pop 80s stuff, where before this they were very much the piano-based Britpop or maybe post-Britpop kind of stuff. But this album reminded me so much of the 80s. That's one reason why I picked it up. This was kind of my gateway drug into really appreciating Keane. The song Spiraling was a huge single for them, and that was just so much. It very much reminded me of the Human League, which was a fairly successful band back in the 80s. But yes, so many good songs on this one. The Lovers Are Losing, You Haven't Told Me Anything. Oh, I thought there was another one. Maybe not, but yeah, just a great stuff. Not typical of their sound, just to warn you. But if you love synth-based stuff, from very 80s sounding stuff, give that album a try. Number 28 on my list is Songs About Jane, the debut album by Maroon 5. Fantastic collection of hits on this album. Great singles. Harder to Breathe, This Love, She Will Be Loved. I love that ballad. That was one of my favorite ballads from the entire decade. Sunday Morning. Tangled was a great album track. I really enjoyed that one. But yes, these guys, I actually found out about these guys in their previous incarnation as a band called Kara's Flowers. But stupidly, I got rid of that CD, and I've kind of been sort of looking for it ever since. One of these days I'll get it again. But yes, after this album, though, they kind of lost me. They just kind of started getting more pop, so I wasn't quite as much into them. So, but yeah, very good stuff. They started out on a very strong note. Now, number 27 is another album that I think should have been ranked higher, but, well, that's how this list ended up. We have Genius Loves Company by Ray Charles. This was, of course, Ray Charles' swan song, his last album before he passed away, packed with great guest artists on here: Norah Jones, Diana Krall, Natalie Cole, Willie Nelson, James Taylor, Elton John, Bonnie Raitt, and that's just a few of them. But yeah, I mean, in my opinion, you're not a true music fan if you don't have at least some Ray Charles in your collection, and you could do a lot worse than to have this one. Even though it's only half Ray Charles, I guess you'd say, still, it's just he never lost it up until his very last album. Ray Charles was a genius, and that was, period, the end. So yeah, wonderful album. I guess I could stop saying wonderful album because these are my favorite albums of the decade, so we all know they're wonderful, to me anyway. Number 26 on my list. Yes, finishing out the bottom half of this list. Yeah, I guess we are going to go just about 1 hour on this because we're just about halfway through the hour. Number 26 on my list is Taking the Long Way by the Dixie Chicks. I wanted to rank this one higher, but there was just so many good albums, in my opinion, that were just edged this one out. But yeah, of course, this has their huge hit, Not Ready to Make Nice. It was their response to a little bit of a controversy they had back in the first half of the 2000s. But the good songs do not stop there. Easy Silence is one of my favorite ballads of all time. I just absolutely love that song. Love It or Leave It is kind of a funny song, fun song there. And yes, so many good songs. And this is actually, as you can see, a deluxe edition. It has a DVD with it, and produced by Rick Rubin. So you pretty much know it's going to be good when it's got Rick Rubin's name on it. But yeah, you guys probably know that album, and I probably don't need to say much about it. But yes, there we go. Another water break, excuse me. Yes, I would have been digging my own grave if I tried to make this list 100 items. Just not going to happen. Number 25 on my list of my favorite albums of the 2000s is Awake is the New Sleep by Ben Lee. Now, what can I say? This album was, there's always one album, at least for me anyway, that you just love so much and you end up buying, well, at least back when CD singles were a thing, you would buy all the CD singles for it and just absolutely obsessed over this album for some strange reason. This was the Ben Lee album that did that for me. And unfortunately, just a couple albums later, he started to go off on very much more of a folky and existential and weird kind of a tangent and kind of lost me. But this is, in my opinion, his magnum opus. I mean, so many great songs on here. Gamble Everything for Love is one of the best songs of the decade. You're going to see a lot of best songs of the decade in this list, apparently. And then we have Catch My Disease is another great one of his. Into the Dark and We're All in This Together. It's another great song. Ben Lee can be an acquired taste. He's a little bit kitschy, a little bit folky, a little bit cheesy for some people. And a couple songs on this album, maybe you could say were like that, but hey, I have a soft spot for at least some of his discography. But yeah, good album. Number 24 is another one of my favorite artists that you've probably heard me talk about quite a bit, Colin Hay. And this is his album, Company of Strangers. And what can I say? His sense of humor is very prominent on this album, by especially in the song Lucky Bastard, as well as, let's see, oh gosh. I'm sorry about this. It takes me a minute to look at the track listing and remember, because these albums are, after all, more than 10 years old, so it takes me a minute to remember. The title track is great. No Win Situation. Lifeline is a fantastic song, as well as Beautiful World. Beautiful World is one of my favorite Colin Hay songs in his entire discography, as well as Lifeline. So, yes, all of his albums are good. He hasn't disappointed me yet with any of his albums. And I will have to tell you guys a little bit more about Colin Hay and my history with Colin Hay in a future video. But yeah, very good stuff. Number 23 is another album that you have probably not heard of, by an artist you have not heard of, that got way too little attention, in my opinion. We have Michael Tolcher with his album I Am. And again, packed from front to back with great songs. I'm going to say that a lot in this top half of the list. But Mission Responsible, Sooner or Later, was used as the theme song from, it was a high school drama back in the early 2000s, I believe. Can't remember the name of it right now. No One Above. That song has got a great funky sound to it. It's a song that I probably would have put on a certain person's wedding playlist, so he needs to go listen to that one. No One Above by Michael Tolcher, listen to that one. The Sun Song, that's what I mean. This is what I mean by that. Miracle, Waiting. I mean, this, like I said, this album is just packed with great songs, and he's got one of those deep voices, very distinctive singing voice, very, very, very throaty, and just one of the things I love about him. It's excellent. Number 22, on the other hand, is one that you probably have heard of, Justin Timberlake. Yeah, you know who he is, right? Sorry about the glare. This is his debut solo album, Justified. NSYNC member Justin Timberlake. I mean, he did. This album was right up there with Michael Jackson's Thriller, maybe, in my opinion. That's just in terms of how well put together the album and most of the songs within the album are. Not necessarily that he is as good as Michael Jackson, but he comes close in a couple of these songs. Like I Love You, Oh No, What You Got, as well as Cry Me a River. Fantastic song. Rock Your Body is the one where he just does the best Michael Jackson song that Michael Jackson never did. That's just an outstanding song. So yeah, great stuff. You've probably heard of that album, so I don't need to go into it. But my arm is getting tired from holding up these CDs, so maybe I'll do it from the other way. I don't know. It's more difficult to reach over and put them down that way. Anyway, number 21. We're almost in the top 20. Yay. Number 21 is Catching Tales by Jamie Cullum. And this is a different cover than you are used to seeing, because this is the Japanese release of the album. But yes, he does a great, and talk about idiosyncratic voices, distinctive voices. Jamie Cullum is one of the great, one of my favorite distinctive voices. Jazz artist. He started out with very much with covers of jazz and Great American Songbook stuff, and he evolved into doing more and more of his own self-written songs. And this album is kind of along that trajectory. London Skies and Photograph are great songs. Mind Trick is a song. It's actually a song about music, so that's why I like it. And 21st Century Kid. 7 Days to Change Your Life. That's a satire of self-help, people who sell self-help stuff and inspirational things. Great, great song on there. But he also does some good covers of other songs. Catch the Sun, which is a song by Doves, I think. He does a great cover of that one. And Our Day Will Come, which is, I believe that was a show tune from the 40s or 50s. And what's the other one that was... Oh, I Only Have Eyes for You. That's a great... So yeah, and he does the covers that he does with an interesting twist. He just very much puts a modern day, or for the early to mid 2000s, twist in a lot of songs. Just put some samples in and some interesting instruments and textures and stuff. Good stuff. Number 20. We're in the top 20. And this is another one of those albums that, depending on my mood, I would probably rank 5 or 6 steps higher in the countdown. But hey, top 20 is good enough, right? It is Jukebox by an artist named Bent Fabric. Now, he was at the time he put out this album, he was in his 80s. He is a jazz artist from Denmark, I believe. And just this is kind of a reimagining, or a 21st century makeover of some of his classic songs. They brought in some new vocalists, some new producers, and kind of modernized a lot of his melodies. But at the core, his melodies and his piano playing are on the album. But this is just an excellent, such a fun album. This is a party on a CD right here. Bam Boogie is the first track. It's just got a great one of those. Is it alliteration? Something about no, automatopoeia. That's what it's called. Where they use the words to make this rhythm in the song. This is great. And then Haven't You Noticed is a great fun song, and It Feels Like Love, and Shake, and Relax Boy, and every song on here. I'm going to sound like a broken record, pun intended, but every song on there is just fantastic. Now, number 19 on my list. Oh, well, let me stop here and read the comments here. Oh, you have something to say about Justin Timberlake at some point. Okay, cool. Number 19 on my list. This guy was extremely high in my favorite albums of the 2000s list, so you probably assumed that his name would be in here somewhere, especially since he was recording back in the 2000s. It is Wouter Hamel with his album Nobody's Tune, and some not nearly as good as Pompadour, which was it number 1 in my decade countdown, I think, for the 2010s, but still it's just packed with amazing songs on here. In Between is one of my favorites of his, as well as March, April, May is another great one. And See You Once Again, that's another one of my favorite songs. See You Once Again and In Between are probably my 2 favorite songs on this album. But yes, it's got 15 songs, this album does. This is the Japanese version, so it has a couple of 3 extra tracks. But yeah, there's not a dull song on there. There's nothing I skip over in that album, as is the case with pretty much everything going forward on this list. Now, my number 18 album of the 2000s, another water break, excuse me. Excuse me. My number 18 album is another one that I can remember seeing in the record store when I bought it, kind of like the whatever his name was, about 5 or 6 albums back. It's nighttime, memory fatigue. Number 18 is Steve Appleton with his album When the Sun Comes Up. And this one, I was actually at Amoeba Music in Hollywood, browsing the racks, and this one happened to be at the very front of one of the slots in the A's. Obviously, I was starting, with at the front of the thing, and it was only $4.95, and it was a Japanese import. So all those things put together, Japanese imports can be pretty darn expensive. So when I saw one for $5, and for some reason, just the cover, I don't know about you guys, but every once in a while, when I just see the cover of an album, it gives me a good vibe. That's what I got with this, and I was not disappointed with this. He is a singer-songwriter, and this was a major label album put out by RCA, and it was, pretty well slickly produced, and he was very big in Japan, obviously since this was a Japanese CD. But he wrote, performed, and produced all these songs, the entire album by himself. It's all self-produced, but it is a major label release, so it's kind of cool. And this was his first album. So, but I mean, this guy has got talent out the back end. I mean, I I could just go on naming the entire track listing. A lot of great funky jazz, well, funk in some songs, jazz in other songs, and good R&B and pop. It's just like he touches on pretty much all those genres. And he's got another one of those interesting voices. Not so much the timbre of his voice, but he doesn't try to hide his British accent in a lot of the songs. So, in my opinion, that brings across a lot of the charm in his songs. And I picked up his subsequent album, Colors. I really, really enjoyed that one as well. I paid a lot more for that one, so it kind of evened out on the cost spectrum. But anyway, great album, needless to say. Number 17 on my list is Beautiful World by Take That. Now, this is a UK, they started out as a boy band. They're now a man band, but they started out back in the mid 90s, I believe, and went until, just about the end of the 90s. And they went on hiatus. Well, they broke up ostensibly for, 7 years, 8 years. And this was their first album that they put out after reuniting as a quartet. Take That is the group that Robbie Williams had been a member of. That was where he got his start, was as a member of Take That. But they reassembled without Robbie Williams and put out this amazing album. And, one of the pitfalls with boy bands is if they come back as, 20-somethings or 30-somethings and try to do the same kind of stuff, they're going to sound awkward, cheesy, and weird. Well, these guys contemporized their sound, I guess is the word. They made it much more of an adult contemporary kind of a sound rather than the dance-oriented teen pop that they did back in the day. So it completely worked for them, and I love this album. Reach Out is a great opening song. Beautiful World is excellent. Like I Never Loved You at All is another fantastic one. I Wait for Life and Shine are two other good ones. The song Patience, I have a very personal connection with. I will go into that at some other point. Maybe I should do a video about songs that I have personal connections with. But yes, Patience strikes a very emotional, meaningful chord with me. And that is just one of the great songs on that album. It's excellent. And some of these albums, by the way, if you're noticing, these are actually tinted jewel cases. This one and the Red Carpet Massacre was in a red tinted jewel case. Weezer's Green album was in a green tinted case, and John Mayer's Continuum I had in a blue case. It's just a load of tinted CD cases that I got a while ago. I've got another interruption in the signal here. I don't know why that's happening. Anyway, that's another a bunch of tinted CD cases that I got at one point and decided to transplant. Anyway, as interesting as that story is, let's move on with the list. Yes, it's almost got 15 minutes left in the hour, and I still got 16 items left to talk about. So let's try not to waste any more time. Number 16 is Underneath by Hanson. Yes, this is their third album, I believe, their third studio album. And there's, if you know Hanson just because of Mbop and their first album, just disregard that, throw that all out the window, and I would suggest listening to this album because this is pretty much my favorite album of theirs overall. They went a little bit too far in the dark or moody direction with their sophomore album, but they dialed it back kind of toward their first album, a little bit more lighthearted stuff for this album, Underneath. Strong Enough to Break is a great opening track. Underneath and Penny and Me is another great song. Great light and airy song. I guess my adjectives are just not with me tonight. Lost Without Each Other. That is one of my favorites. Again, one of my favorite songs of the decade. I love that song. It's got a great syncopated bouncy beat. I love it. And Deeper is another fantastic song on this album. So if you listen to two songs, I would suggest Deeper and Lost Without Each Other. So yeah. If you don't know much about Hanson other than Mbop, this album will change your mind. Number 15. I had actually originally ranked this album higher just because I love this artist so much. But yeah, just this is the way the numbers eventually fell. We have Thin Places by Randall Bramblett. This is, I'm not sure, I think it's his 6th or 7th album. But this is the one that kind of got me hooked into Randall Bramblett. This is how I discovered him. Actually discovered him through the sampler CD that came with a music magazine. And one of the songs on that CD was from this album. It is Are You Satisfied? That's a great song. 2 or 3 of my favorite Randall Bramblett songs through his entire discography are on this album. So yes, Are You Satisfied? And You Can Be the Rain is another great song. I love that song. And Playing Card is another fantastic song. So yes, a great Americana, slightly country artist with a great kind of gravelly voice. He's actually been recording since the 70s, but there was a huge gap in his discography in like the 80s and 90s. And he started up and he's done, 12 albums overall. Great artist. Number 14 is another one of those albums, and I will be talking about this one in my album diaries video at some point, and that's a series that I need to get back to. I've only done one installment so far. But number 14 is Brad Paisley with his album Play, and this is a mostly instrumental album, but I don't want to talk too much about it to not repeat myself in my album diaries video. But this is another album that has great meaning to me, and also a broad variety of genres on here. He does actually a surf rock song on here. Yeah, he's a country artist, but he does a great surf rock song on this album. And so yes, and some blues as well. And I think there's actually one or two good old straight ahead rock flavored songs on here. So yes, Brad Paisley is not just country, as this album proves, and a few great guest artists on here. Buck Owens, Keith Urban, B.B. King is also on here. So yes, I will go into this album later in much more detail, but suffice to say it is a personally meaningful album to me and just a darn good album in general to listen to. Number 13 is, and I'm sorry to say that this is the highest ranked female artist on my list. I'm afraid no female artists made the top 10. Sorry about that, but it just so happens that for no reason in particular, I'm much more into music done by male artists than female artists. I guess it's just because I identify more with male artists than female artists. At least that was the case back in the 2000s. My tastes have gotten to include more female artists in recent years. But number 13 is Sarah Bareilles with her debut album, Little Voice. At least this is her major label debut anyway. Great stuff. Excuse me. And yeah, this is how I discovered Sarah Bareilles. And I'm not sure, I must have listened to a song before getting this album. But yeah, I love the album. I love the song so much that had to pick it up. Love Song, of course, is one of probably her biggest hit. Morningside is a fantastic song on here, as well as Bottle It Up. That's another fantastic one. So yeah, no shortage of great songs on this album. Check it out if you have not yet. Do yourself a favor. Number 12 on my list is another album that I've enjoyed for ever since pretty much right when it came out. It is Free All Angels. This is by a rock group called Ash. They are a UK or Irish rock band. And I've tried several of their other albums, but none of them have come anywhere near as close to this one in terms of how much I love this album. I don't know what it is about the songs on this album as opposed to the other ones, but something just clicked, or maybe it was the fact that this album just spoke to me at the time that I picked it up. I remember there was a store very close to where I worked back at the time. It was called Face the Music. And for some reason they had a stack of there must have been 20 copies of the CD, and they hadn't been moving, so they put them out for like $1.95. So that's how I discovered this album. I took a chance on it, paying $1.95. Big spender, right? But so many great songs. Walking Barefoot, which is not the song that was done by, I can't remember, some other group back in the 70s or 80s did a song called Walking Barefoot. It's a different song. But Shining Light, which actually Annie Lennox covered on one of her albums. Burn Baby Burn is another great song. Candy, Someday, Sometimes is another good song. There's a Star, another great song. These guys are kind of like Britpop, sort of, but in my opinion, much more enjoyable than most of the Britpop that I've heard. But just a never-ending list of great songs on that album. Just fantastic. And sorry, but I've got to take another water break. So yes, this video is going to be just about the right length because I'm just about to the top 10. So I think we're doing good. Number 11 on my list is another boy band. This band is called Five, and this was their third and final album called King Size. What can I say? I think Five might actually be my favorite boy band, even outranking NSYNC. And all the more strange about that is they incorporated hip hop into their sound, and I'm not much of a fan of hip hop. So go figure, right? It's just not necessarily the ingredients themselves, but how they're mixed together that give an album or an artist appeal. But yes, this is just a great album from top to bottom, and they do a great interpolation of the theme song from the movie Grease. They incorporate that into the song Rock the Party in one of the most inventive ways I've ever heard. And they also do another, on one of their previous albums, they incorporate I Love Rock and Roll by Joan Jett into a song of theirs. So yes, these guys were really good at, they're songwriters and producers, I guess, were really good at using sampling and borrowed tunes. But hey, they do their own great stuff too. Let's Dance is a good song. Closer to Me is a great ballad. And again, one of my favorite songs of the 2000s, Hear Me Now. Check out Hear Me Now by Five. It's got much more of a rock sound to it than the pop sound of most of the other stuff, which is probably one reason why I like it so much. Feel the Love is probably a little bit cheesy in the lyrics, but it's just got a great kind of anthemic sound to it. Take Your Chances on Me, On Top of the World. It's just, as I keep saying, top to bottom, the track listing is great on this. But yes, the boy band Five, I just have such a soft spot for them. I really, really enjoyed them. So, and it was sad to see that they only put out 3 studio albums before they disbanded. So, anyway, we have reached the top 10 of my favorite albums of the 2000s. So let's keep it rolling here, shall we? Before my voice gives out. Number 10 is Aliens and Rainbows by Faraz. Now, Faraz is a Middle Eastern American artist who is just, well, what can I say? He's just got a great album of songs here. I could just walk through the entire track listing here, but Something About You is, altogether now, one of my favorite songs of the 2000s. And also a song called Dear God, which pretty much, it's almost like I could have written that song, because it kind of brings across my view of religion and belief in God and that kind of stuff. Great song. Don't Give Up is another great track on here. Everybody Bleeds the Same is another fantastic one. The song that got some single buzz in the States and some exposure, I think, on American Idol was called Hollywood's Not America. But in my opinion, that's like the least interesting song on this album. So if you've heard that song and saying, oh, that's for us, forget that. Well, forget that. Forget that he wrote that song and put that song, but the whole rest of the album is so much better than that. Liberation Day is the opening track on this album, but it's great, upbeat, danceable pop with some great synth textures and stuff in there and some great lyrics as well. Can't be beat, except by these next 9 albums. Number 9 is another perennial favorite of mine that you've heard me talk about a few times, Teddy Thompson with his third album, I believe, A Piece of What You Need. And yes, again, one of my favorite songs of the decade, a song called What's This? Great sense of humor on that song. Fantastic stuff. And In My Arms is another fantastic song on here. Can't Sing Straight is a few of these songs on here bring around his kind of self-deprecating sense of humor. Jonathan's Book is another outstanding track on here, and this just might be my favorite Teddy Thompson album in his entire discography. It's just wonderful. And I was actually going to do a now and then video of his most recent album that he put out last year, and this was going to be the then album. I still kind of, in talking about this album now, I kind of regret never getting around to doing that video, but yeah. If you have not checked out Teddy Thompson, do yourself a favor, because you don't know what you're missing. Excuse me. Number 8. I don't want to spill my CDs. I'd rather not do that. Number 8 on my list is another favorite artist of mine, and they are a Canadian, one of the second highest ranked Canadian artist on this list. Spoiler alert, there's another one coming. We have Bare Naked Ladies with their album Maroon. Most of you guys probably know this album, maybe some of you don't. This is not the album that has 1 Week on it. And in my opinion, if that's all that you've heard of Bare Naked Ladies, that's selling them short, because they have such a great songwriting sensibility and a great sense of humor in a lot of their lyrics. Some of their best songs are on here. Too Little Too Late, as well as Pinch Me is one of my favorite songs of theirs. And Falling for the First Time is another great one. And the print is very small, so I have to look at it this way. Tonight is the Night I Fell Asleep at the Wheel. That's another fantastic song. Some of their album tracks are very, very underrated. So yes, if you have not listened to Maroon, and yes, this is another one that is in a tinted jewel case. It is in a red jewel case, hence the album title. But yeah, one of Bare Naked Ladies' can't miss albums, in my opinion. Number 7, lucky number 7, is the other Canadian artist in my... Oh no, sorry, there are 2 other Canadian artists, this one and another one. This is an artist that I talked about in my favorite Canadian music, my Canada Week last year before. This is the Sam Roberts Band, or Sam Roberts, with the album We Were Born in a Flame. This is a fantastic album of, I'd call it Americana, but I've made the same joke in another video. But he's Canadian, so I guess it's Canadiana. But yeah, just that kind of heartland barroom rock kind of sound. One good song after another on here. Hard Road, Don't Walk Away Eileen is a great, great song. Brother Down is the song that got a lot of attention. Some radio play, but didn't get really, really popular here in the States. And Where Have All the Good People Gone, as well as Every Part of Me is another fantastic song. So, yeah, you could do a lot worse than to check this album out. I think it will surprise you. It's just fantastic. And again, I have kind of like with the band Ash, I've tried 1 or 2 other Sam Roberts albums, and none of them have held my heart nearly as much as that one did for some reason. Number 6, as we head very close to the top 5. Number 6 on my list is an artist that you had to have known was coming up at some point here, Weird Al Yankovic, with his album Straight Outta Linwood. Yes, this is the album that has the, well, he's claimed it's a semi-autobiographical song, and it's a very biographical song for me as well. White and nerdy. Hey, I am the picture of white and nerdiness, I guess you'd say. But yeah, some great songs. Canadian Idiot is, he takes friendly little jabs at Canada in that song. And I'm a bit of a Canada appreciator, I guess. So that song has a little more meaning to me. And the parodies are a little bit better than the originals on this album. Some of the originals are a little bit, fall a little flat. Like I'll Sue Ya, I never really care for that one. But Virus Alert is one of the originals on here. That's really good. As well as Don't Download This Song. That's the closing track, and it's just this big, beautiful, sweeping anthem about illegally pirating music. It's very fun. So yes, lots of good stuff on here. It's It was only one of only, what, two albums, I think, that he put out in the entire decade. And so it's kind of basically defaulted to my favorite of his albums from that decade. But anyway, number 5 is a British artist, or a UK artist that a lot of people may have heard of. Some people maybe haven't. It is McFly with their sophomore album, Wonderland. Now, McFly started out kind of very Monkees-ish. They kind of had a very, very lighthearted first album. Kind of, well, as I said, they were kind of Monkees-ish, but a little bit more serious than the Monkees. But songwriting talent, you could tell from the get-go that these guys had songwriting talent, instrumental talent, and they could make great vocal harmonies and great great singing talent as well. And this album, they went a little bit more serious, but some wonderful songs on here. Let's see, All About You is one of my favorite romantic ballads of the 2000s. Great. And Too Close for Comfort is another great song. I've Got You is a really, really upbeat one. And what's the other one? There was, I Want to Hold You. That's a kind of a power ballad, or well, maybe more upbeat than a power ballad, I guess you'd say. But yeah, an excellent song. Well, as I keep saying, from top to bottom on the track list, just excellent songs on here, and they are. I would actually hesitate to describe these guys as being comparable to the Beatles in their ability to craft a good catchy song. Not nearly the overall talent, I guess you'd say, of the Beatles. That would be a little giving them a little bit too much credit. But just in terms of their ability to craft some ear candy, but that has a little bit of instrumental and lyrical substance, McFly is right up there, in my opinion. Okay, enough gushing about McFly. My number 4 favorite album of the 2000s is, and this one's pretty much tied with number 3. I waffled back and forth on number 4 and number 3, but number 4, as I finalize this list, is an album called Looking Through You. It is by a group called the Yeah Yeahs. You guys probably have never heard of them. This was their one and only studio album under this name, but some great Supertramp-ish, power pop-ish, pop rock. So many catchy songs on here. I listened to this album a couple weeks ago in my re-listening and prepping for this list, and it's like every single song on here. But my favorites have got to be Clifftop. I absolutely love that song, as well as If I Could. But just, yeah, and the sad thing is, I don't think this is on streaming services. So it's kind of like you have to buy this album or find a website to download it. So yeah, that's one of the crimes against music, in my opinion, is that this album is not easy to locate and listen to. But yeah, Ready to Love Again and Getting Up With You. Getting Up With You is a very sweet romantic song. I love that one. And yeah, If I'd Only Said Hello, that's kind of a bit of a bittersweet, heartbreaking song. But yes, so many great fun songs on that album. I just can't say enough good things about it. As with the last 3 albums on my list, I am now up to my top 3 albums, studio albums of the 2000s, in my opinion. Number 3, as I said, was neck and neck with the U's. It is No Strings Attached by NSYNC. What can you say about this album? If you don't know about this album, you've been living under a rock, I think. But yeah, this is pretty much the boy band pop album, the definitive boy band pop album. If you want to know how boy band pop is done and done well, this is the only album you need to listen to. Bye Bye Bye, the opening track, was one of the biggest hits of the 2000s. It's Gonna Be Me, which has its own meme now at the end of April, because Justin sings me as though it were the word May. So it's Gonna Be May at the end of April. Yeah. Fun, clever song, meme. But yes, This I Promise You is one of the classic ballads of that era. I Thought She Knew is one of the best a cappella songs ever. Period. The end. Case closed. Fight Me, I Dare You. And just so many other good songs on here. No Strings Attached, the title track. Uh, Digital Get Down, I don't know. Space Cowboy is another fantastic song, but yes, if you want a textbook example of boy band pop from the 90s, or 2000s in this case, that's the album to go to. And it's number 3 on my list because it deserves it. Now, the top 2 albums on my list you probably have not heard of, except maybe from me. My number 2 favorite album of the 2000s, my runner-up, is an album called This Is Pop Music, and it is by a Norwegian singer-songwriter named Espen Lind. And he is actually now much more famous as a songwriter and producer. He is one half of a production duo called Espionage that you have probably heard of. But in my opinion, his albums were just fantastic, and this one was my favorite in his entire discography. This one blew me away, and not just because of the songwriting, but also the sonic textures, the production, and all the little stuff that he put into, and they're almost like audio Easter eggs that he puts in on the layers of the songs. Even with my 6th or 7th listen of this album, I was still hearing stuff that I hadn't heard the previous listens. It's that intricate and that well done and well crafted. Oh gosh, what would I pick as a favorite song? Probably, well, a few different songs. Pop from Hell actually is the closing track on this album, and it's kind of like it reminds me of a little bit of maybe a Queen song, just kind of got that really bombastic, over-the-top theatrical kind of nature to it. But all the other songs on this album are much more straightforward. You've got Black Sunday, Everything's Falling Apart, and This Is the Time, This Is the Place. And those are the upbeat songs, and there are a couple of good ballads on here called like Life is Good. I said that's one good song. And Coming Home is another one that's very good. And he does an absolutely gorgeous duet with Sissel, I believe. She's an Irish singer, I think. It's called Where the Lost Ones Go. And actually, I believe Sarah Brightman did a cover of that one. I just found out in the past year on one of her albums. So, but yes, the harmonies between Espen Lind and Sissel on this version of Where the Lost Ones Go, sublime, absolutely gorgeous. And that's actually a bonus track on the Japanese edition of the album, which is what I have here. So yes, Espen Lind, his debut album Red is also really, really good. And I intend to do a discography video on Espen Lind at some point. He's just a great, great artist and a great songwriter and producer now. So fantastic stuff. Now, my number one favorite studio album of the entire decade of the 2000s was also number 1 on another list that I did. And I don't want to spoil that. Well, okay, it was my number 1 on my favorite Canadian albums of all time. So those of you who watched that video, you know what the album is. It is Submodalities by the Moffats. Now, this was a sibling act, a brother act from Canada. They were, let's see, Scott was, what was he, 19, I think, at the time they did this album. And his 3 brothers are triplets. Funny that, huh? Yes, 2 identical twins and a third non-identical triplet. And they were all 18 or 17 at the time they did this album. But this is just phenomenal. Produced by Bob Rock. So yes, an album that you've never heard of by a producer that you have heard of. And the only thing that might be a detractor, or that's not the right word, but that might be a detriment, that's the word I'm thinking of, to this album is the fact that the songs, the album from song to song is not super cohesive. The guys were starting to have artistic differences between them at this point, and so the songs, this almost sounds like a compilation album rather than a cohesive studio album. But I mean, the songs individually, when you take them song by song, they're just fantastic. There's pretty much not a song that I skip on this album when I listen to it, ever. Bang Bang Boom was the big single that got a lot of radio attention in Canada. And California has a real Green Day kind of a punk pop vibe to it. That's great. Just Another Phase is kind of like a Radiohead or Britpop sort of thing going on with it. Typical and Walking Behind are probably my two favorite songs on the album. They're just they're very straightforward pop rock stuff. And Life on Mars, which is not the David Bowie song. This is an original song, Life on Mars, although it does have a bit of a David Bowie, well, maybe not so much of a David Bowie twist to it, but kind of a psychedelic 60s twist to it. There's a sitar in that song, so hey, I'm a fan. But yes, and Call the Doctor is another great song. That's one of the shorter songs on it. Spy is just a expansive, kind of an epic sort of. Actually, that one's a little bit more Radiohead than the opener, Just Another Phase. But yeah, that one, I've always pictured Spy as being, not just because of its title. It could have been used as a theme to a James Bond movie. It's just the way that it was done. Antifreeze and Aeroplanes, that's another great song that has to do with substance abuse. So, as you can see, I just can't say enough good things about this album. But yeah, there's a very good reason why it's #1 on my favorite albums of the decades of the 2000s list. I just absolutely love it to pieces. Can't say enough good things about this album. So, hey, I made it in less than an hour and 15 minutes. Counting down 50, well, if you count the honorable mentions, 60 albums. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this list. Let me, got one thing. I might actually be doing an extra video this weekend, perhaps on Sunday. I'm thinking Sunday afternoon. If I do one, it's going to be Sunday afternoon. And, excuse me, there I go, not prepared again. Hang on. So yes, there's one or two things I want to talk to you guys about that I've kind of, it happened to me this week. So where is that stupid file that I'm looking for? There it is. Sorry about that. But yeah, there's something that happened to me this week, music related, that I want to share with you guys. So I kind of want to get that out in the open and get that taken care of and share that with you. And another thing that I want to do, and I think I might conflate both of those things into one video. So, excuse me. That was rude of me. Assuming you heard the burp. Hopefully you didn't. But anyway, so yes, hopefully I will, bring you guys a video Sunday afternoon, I hope. It will be unannounced, so if you miss it, you can always watch it in the replay. So anyway, enough of my rambling. I don't want to go beyond an hour and 15 minutes, even though there's no reason I can't. But anyway, that'll do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I was really looking forward to bringing this to you guys, and I hope it was worth the wait for you guys. It was for me. If you like this video, hit that like button and share it with your friends, and give me your thoughts, questions, suggestions, or constructive criticisms in the comment section below. Also, scroll down to the description for the links to my Twitter and Instagram feeds, and links to my favorite fellow YouTubers who are all worth checking out. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet, and browse my past videos, and be sure to ring that notifications bell so you'll be the first to know each time I drop a new video. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next Friday, and maybe sooner. And remember, life's too short to be a music snob. See you guys. Take care.